New Red Hat, same Red Hat. The new logo for the Linux giant has been unveiled. What do we think? Also, GNOME 3.32, that's the desktop environment that's used in the recent releases of Ubuntu and Fedora. GNOME 3.32, it's awesome, but it still needs improvements in some key areas. We're going to discuss that today. Purism's Librem One is a dream come true for privacy-concerned people. Also, Windows 10 will soon require at least 32 gigs of free space on your hard drive. Mozilla is going to drop their IRC channel as the main communication platform, and they're going to move to Discord. We're going to discuss that one too. That's a head scratcher there. These 5 stories I will be taking into account. And the first story on the docket tonight is actually a repeat from last week. Last week we discussed that Red Hat made an announcement. They were going to be doing some rebranding. They were going to come out with a new logo. We didn't know what it was last week. It was just an announcement. They wanted to change the logo up. And this week they unveiled that new logo. So the announcement here on the Red Hat website, new Red Hat, same Red Hat. And you can see it's still a Red Hat, right? Still Red Hat with the word Red Hat out to the side. Not that much different. This is not any kind of radical departure. It's very subtle. It changes, but it kind of fits with the times. For example, if I go back and show you the progression of the Red Hat logo over the years, you can see, well, early on they changed it often, but this is the logo that they've gone with for the last 20 years. It's this it's a more detailed Red Hat, right? It's got some shadowing, where this one is much simpler in design. Also, this one, the hat actually sits on this shadowy figure's head. As a matter of fact, the Red Hat guys call this guy the Shadow Man in the logo, which is kind of strange. I mean, do you want to be branded as this shadowy character, this guy over in the shadows? It's kind of odd branding. So I can understand why they wanted to get away from that and just go with the hat rather than the Shadow Man wearing the hat. Also, you can tell the font is a little different. Now, the old font did not include any capital letters, where now the font actually has capitalization, Red Hat. This was kind of standard, especially back in the 90s era, especially on websites. A lot of people love just going with lowercase letters and using bold fonts mixed with light fonts in a name, like Red Hat did, was also kind of typical of web design, especially back then. This is a much more modern look. Quite frankly, I think it's a welcome change. I think it's better branding. I think it's more professional. I think when people see this logo here, I don't know if they will immediately think of a tech company or a Linux company, but I do think that it's better branding than this guy, this strange character here wearing the hat. A matter of fact, Red Hat actually did some surveying of people about the old logo with the shadow character, and some of the responses from the people that they showed that particular logo, the old logo to, apparently alarmed the folks over at Red Hat, because they were getting words like sinister, secretive, evil, sneaky from some of their respondents. So again, they wanted to get away from the Shadow Man. Red Hat talks about coming out of the shadows here. Let me read very briefly. Quote, "The new logo reflects Red Hat's evolution from a scrappy upstart sneaking into data centers with box copies of a Linux-based operating system to the world's leading provider of open source solutions for enterprise hybrid cloud environments, someone working daily with the largest company and agencies in the world to develop and run mission-critical solutions." I think this new logo, though, is a nice change for Red Hat. I do agree. The old logo was a little dated. The new logo is much more modern with the times. And you want a fresh kind of look. Red Hat is really it's a multi-billion-dollar company, very innovative. It's on the forefront as far as Linux companies, and Red Hat recently was purchased, of course, by IBM for $34 billion, and many people wondered if IBM had any say-so as far as Red Hat doing this rebranding. The Red Hat guys say no, this has been in the works for a little while. They've been thinking about changing the logo going back before IBM actually purchased the company, so this was not IBM being heavy-handed or anything. As far as anybody can tell, IBM's kind of letting the Red Hat guys do what they want, so which makes sense because Red Hat was a very successful company. Why mess with something that is not broken? And the second story on the docket tonight is GNOME 3.32. Now, GNOME 3.32 is the desktop environment that is featured in the most recent releases of Ubuntu. I covered the big releases of Ubuntu 1904 on the channel and Fedora 30 recently on the channel. Massively popular Linux desktop distributions, Ubuntu and Fedora, and both of them are using the GNOME 3.32 desktop environment. And one author writes, you know what, GNOME 3.32, it's awesome, but guess what? It still needs improvements in some areas. Some of you guys I know are big fans of GNOME. I'm going to warn you right now, the author in this article, he's going to be kind of critical of GNOME, but I think it's positive criticism, and I may be kind of critical of GNOME as I also give my input. So GNOME 3.32 is awesome, but still needs improvements in key areas, and I'll just, for sake of time, briefly skim over this. So number one is that GNOME is a desktop that does nothing. Absolutely right. A vanilla GNOME desktop basically is nothing. It is a wallpaper, and it is that black top panel that really doesn't have much useful information on it. It's got a clock. The clock is in an odd place in the center of the panel. I don't know why they do that, but hey, I can live with that. But there's no pinned applications on that panel. There's no dock. To launch an app, by the way, you need to point your cursor to that top left-hand part of the screen or hit the super key. You know, once you get the cursor over into that top left-hand corner, then all of a sudden a dock appears. Well, why wasn't the dock appearing anyway, especially on a blank screen or blank desktop? I don't already have Windows open. I can understand if I have a full screen browser open, yeah, have the dock disappear to get out of my way, but if nothing's going on, why isn't the dock already on the screen? Why do I have to go through the two-step process of clicking activities or hitting super or whatever to get the dock to appear and then clicking on, whatever app I want to launch from that dock? It doesn't make sense for that dock not to be on the desktop all the time, at least whenever there's not other programs running. So I absolutely agree with his criticism that by default, the GNOME desktop is kind of nothing. There's nothing on it. The author goes on to point out why Ubuntu kind of hacks GNOME in such a way that they have a panel that's shown all the time, that their dock is shown all the time to avoid this ridiculous feature in GNOME where the dock is hidden by default. Also, he mentions that there's an extension called Dash to Dock that is insanely popular. I think most GNOME users install Dash to Dock or Dash to Panel, one of those two extensions, because you need a proper dock or panel on your screen all the time. That's what I think 95% plus of desktop computer users expect. I wish GNOME just would give up on what they're trying to do with this desktop, again, that does nothing. Number two, according to the author, is GNOME has a barely functional status bar. And I would agree with that. The indicators over here, they're really not individual indicators. Can I actually zoom in here? I don't think I can. But anyway, you guys that have seen the GNOME desktop, you have all your app indicators over here. And you think that you can just click on each one and get something. But no, they're all in this one menu. And it's kind of strange. So I'm not exactly sure why the GNOME guys do that. It's strange, to click on like a network icon and you don't get the relevant menu that you would expect. Instead, you get just this standard generic menu with a bunch of stuff in it. And he actually really goes off about this barely functional status bar. He writes a ton of stuff. I won't go over it, but connecting to the Wi-Fi network is too many steps in that menu. There's no battery percentage options. There's no app indicators, which is a big deal for a lot of folks. So no suspend button. Yeah, that's interesting because they have the session buttons here, but you don't really have a suspend button. So anyway, number three is the deceiving app drawer. So this is another one where there's just too many steps to get to something that should just be on the screen. So kind of like the dock should already be on the screen. To get the app drawer open, what do you need to do? Well, it's a two-step process on vanilla GNOME. First, you point the cursor to the left edge of the screen. Then in the dash or dock on the side, you click the little app grid icon. Then once you click that icon, then you get the app drawer. That's a three-step process when really I should just be able to click activities and all of this just come up by default. Or hit super on the keyboard and all of this come up by default. There's no reason to go to this 2 or 3 step process to get the dock and to get to the app grid. If I'm opening up activities, chances are I'm trying to open a program anyway. Why isn't the app grid already up? Some of his other criticisms here about the app grid include that the names are too short as shown on the screen. The font, it cuts the names really short, so it's kind of hard to tell what some of these programs are because you don't get a very long program name, at least showing up in the app drawer menu. Number 4 he mentions here is unnecessary notifications. What he's talking about here is that when you click on download folder button in Firefox, for a file you just downloaded, GNOME displays a notification saying that the application is ready, but it doesn't open that said application automatically. I think that's a minor gripe, but it's a gripe he wanted to point out. That's one of the least bothersome things for me as far as GNOME. Number 5 is the bare bones file manager. I'm surprised he saved that one for number 5. That's actually one of the number 1 criticisms really with the GNOME software suite is GNOME, for some reason, they have really neutered their file manager. The file manager really can't do much of anything. GNOME's file manager, he goes on to write here, quote, can't create new files from the right-click context menu. Wow. So that should tell you everything. So basically what you got to go through now is, the solution to get around this problem is to open the desired application, create a new file there, save it to the desired location. But if you were already in a file manager, why couldn't you just do that from the file manager? The other thing is there's confusing action buttons in the GNOME file manager. Nautilus, by the way, is the actual name of the file manager, although in GNOME, the desktop environment, when you search for it, the only name you get is a generic name called Files, but the actual file manager is called Nautilus, and the action buttons are very confusing. It's hard to, when you're first coming to it, it's hard to figure out really how to use Nautilus. You have the same icons for different file types, so it is a confusing icon set they're using as well. And then the file picker, I guess, is a problem, at least for the author here. So, quote, GNOME's file picker is used to select files when in other applications it doesn't have a thumbnail grid view. So this means having to navigate one file after another to see the palpable previews of each before selecting any of them. And he goes on to say that Windows, Mac, and of course KDE all provide that thumbnail grid view. Why doesn't GNOME? I think GNOME is just trying to be different. They're trying to go their own path, but I think in a lot of ways, GNOME has really done themselves a disservice by becoming as minimal as they become. They've removed so many features from the desktop environment and from various applications within the desktop environment. GNOME is really almost unusable, especially for like the Linux power user. Number 6 on his gripe is the document viewer has no tabs. Just quickly, the photo viewing app, he criticizes that. And he can't find his settings, so there's some undiscoverable settings within GNOME. I actually don't mind the settings manager and all the settings in GNOME. I find that pretty intuitive. I actually criticize KDE Plasma a lot more for having undiscoverable settings. For example, you can't set a custom wallpaper in GNOME. Well, you can, but you have to jump through some hoops there. Anyway, I'm going to link to this article. So this article was really just a guy's blog, but I thought it was really fascinating, and I thought this was really great feedback as far as this guy took some serious time. I mean, there's pictures in this blog post, and I really think the GNOME guys could really take some of this to heart. And a lot of these criticisms he talks about here, these are easy fixes. The GNOME devs could fix this in GNOME 3.34 very easily if they wanted to. I'm just not sure that they really want to appeal to the masses. And the third story on the docket tonight is Librem One. So Purism has a new offering called Librem One that is a dream come true for the privacy concerned folks out there. So just very brief, Purism, it's a privacy-focused company. I'm sure many of you guys have heard about the Librem laptops and the Librem smartphones. So Librem, they are what they call a social purpose corporation. They created PureOS, their own Linux distribution, privacy-minded Linux distribution. Librem creates their own series of laptops, their Linux-based smartphones. You guys probably know about the Librem key, the security key, kind of like a YubiKey. Purism has increased its offering for privacy and security-minded people with a bundle of services called Librem One. So Librem One is a collection of encrypted services for privacy-aware people. So what exactly are the services of Librem One, of that suite? Well, you get Librem Chat, which is end-to-end encrypted chat, VoIP, and video calling based on Matrix. You get Librem Mail, which is end-to-end encrypted email services like Tutanota and Proton Mail. And then you get Librem Tunnel, which is an end-to-end encrypted VPN tunnel. You get Librem Social, which is a decentralized social media, sort of like Mastodon. You guys know I love Mastodon. I like decentralized social networking. I think it's smart. I think that's the way to go. But it's not just those services. There are some other services in the pipeline that will be added to the Librem One suite of services later. They're just not available initially, but planned are Librem Files, which is a pay-as-you-go end-to-end encrypted cloud storage. Librem Backup, pay-as-you-go end-to-end encrypted long-term full cloud backups. Librem Contacts, end-to-end contact sync, of course. Librem Pay, which is your cryptographic payments. And Librem Dial, pay-as-you-go phone service. So what about the pricing? Well, as you might expect from what I just read, as far as listing some of the services that they're offering now and plan to offer, some of those services, of course, will be free. Others, of course, will be paid services. So if you just want to use the Librem Chat and the Librem Social services, you don't have to pay anything. You can download those apps on your Google Play Store, the Apple Store, whatever, and you're good to go. But the rest of the Librem One services do cost. So it is, free services, but it's not free as in cost, right? We're not talking free as in beer here. The pricing, though, for these services seems very reasonable. So you have the individual package. So one user, for $7.99 a month, you get the Librem Chat, Social, Mail, Tunnel, and all other future services that they plan. $7.99 a month. That's $8 a month. That's very respectable. And then they have a family pack for $14.99 a month. Up to 5 users get those same services. So I'm actually pretty excited to check out some of these services. Purism, the company Purism, and their line of laptops and smartphones, the Librem line, kind of interests me. Their hardware, their laptops, they're kind of expensive. I don't know if I will ever get one. They cost somewhere around $1,300 for their laptops. But I do like how it's Linux and how it's privacy focused. Everything they do is privacy focused. So their targeted market is really privacy nuts. I'm going to put it that way. It's for those extreme privacy-minded people, but really it's for those people that absolutely must secure their data. So we're talking journalists, politicians, whistleblowers, corporate whistleblowers, government whistleblowers, social activists, just to name a few examples. Overall, I think Purism is a great company. I advise anybody that can to support the company, buy their products. I, again, would love to purchase one of their laptops or even one of their smartphones at some point. Right now, I'm just not able to, but it might be something I check out in the future. And the fourth story on the docket tonight is one of two head-scratcher kind of stories. The last two stories here are head scratchers because I don't know what these companies are thinking, but Windows 10 will soon require at least 32 gigabytes of free space on your hard drive. This one here is just mind-blowing. So Windows 10, the latest build of Windows 10 that's due out in a May 2019 update, it's build 1903, will require a hefty 32 gigabytes of free space before you can install it. That's double the disk space that you've needed in the past to install Windows 10. Think about that. That's twice the disk space. What does that mean? Well, it means that some machines are going to be forced into an unexpected end of life next month after Microsoft releases this because of this huge jump in the minimum requirements for running Windows 10. One of the consequences is that there are a large number of 32 gigabyte tablets out there that run Windows, a lot of Windows tablets. And they're not going to be physically capable of installing the new operating system because even though they have a 32 gig drive, you can't really get this thing installed on the 32 gig drive in those tablets because even if you wipe the whole thing and start over, the 32 gig drive will only register as about 31.7 gigs. Not quite enough space. So this is going to be a situation where hopefully these tablets don't attempt to do the update, because if they do, who knows? Maybe it borks the machines. But, you know, Microsoft kind of has this habit of breaking people's machines. We all saw what happened with the updates, the recent Windows 10 updates, the major updates that were basically bricking people's machines sometimes because the install just wouldn't complete properly. Of course, Microsoft, those Windows 10 updates also had the disastrous 1809 build that came out last year that ended up deleting user files from some people's machines. It was actually deleting their documents folder for whatever reason. Anyway, why the jump from 16 gigs to 32 gigs for a Windows build? Are you getting twice the amount of features in the next build of Windows 10? Are you getting 16 gigs of extra features in Windows? No, obviously not. The next version of Windows 10 that comes out, the May 2019 update, is going to offer almost no new features. I think there's going to be some kind of sandbox feature. There's a new light theme. And of course, the new Edge browser will be the Chromium-based Edge, but that's it. So I don't know why this thing needs 16 gigabytes of space. I do know that Windows does have a reserve space. It expects there to be a certain amount of reserve space on a drive, and they save that for those updates and patches that Windows loves to do. But I don't know. This is a strange move by Microsoft, because it's going to wreck a lot of people's machines, or it's going to prevent them from ever updating. It's basically going to push people to move away from Windows 10, at least, maybe move away from any future versions of Windows at all. Then maybe this will hopefully get some people to take a look at Linux, finally. And the fifth and final story on the docket tonight, again, is another head-scratcher, this time from Mozilla. And I'm a big fan of Mozilla. I've been a Firefox user since the beginning, Thunderbird user forever as well. But this, I don't understand what they're doing. Mozilla is going to drop IRC as their main communications platform and the server infrastructure that powers irc.mozilla.org sometime in the coming months. So right now, one of the best ways to reach out to Mozilla about any of the Mozilla products, such as Firefox, for example, is IRC. IRC, for those that are not familiar with IRC, is Internet Relay Chat. It is a very old chat protocol from way back in the day. It was very popular back in the 90s. The popularity is kind of waning. Not too many people know about IRC these days, but there's still a lot of people that use it. IRC has a very loyal following, especially among free and open source software enthusiasts. We have the largest network on IRC is Freenode. What is Freenode? Well, Freenode hosts channels mostly for Linux distributions and free and open source software projects and programming languages, and it's got, I don't know, 100,000, maybe 200,000 users on it, so it is not dead. A lot of activity does go on IRC, and it's kind of an open platform. It's not proprietary in any way, and I don't understand why a company like Mozilla, which makes all of its money, of course, with open source software, why they would ditch IRC, and presumably they have to go to some proprietary platform, I'm assuming, is where they wanting to go. Why do they want to leave IRC? Well, apparently it's because, according to one Mozilla employee, IRC has aged kind of badly, and that the chance of things getting better is slim to non-existent. I disagree with that. IRC hasn't aged at all. It's still just plain text chat. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful plain text, and it's easy, it's fast, and that's why it has such a loyal following, as the people that use IRC love IRC, and it doesn't need to get better. It's just chat. What are you missing from a chat client, from just plain text? I don't understand. I think whatever Mozilla employee that was that's quoted there is just way off base. Anyway, to quote him further, quote, "We've come to the conclusion that for all IRC's utility, it is irresponsible of us to ask our people, employees, volunteers, partners, anyone else, to work in an environment that we can't make sure is healthy, safe, and productive." You set moderators on IRC? Why can't it be healthy, safe, and productive? This makes no sense. It's just like any other chat platform. You have people there as moderators to, ban people, kick people, make sure things are on topic. I don't understand why he's making that statement either. According to the article here, IRC is not accessible sometimes from inside schools, colleges, corporate networks, but I mean, that's every chat client, though. I mean, some places you just can't get out of, the local network anyway. Now, the rumor is that Mozilla is thinking about moving to Discord. Discord is not free and open source. Now, this article doesn't mention Discord, but I have seen many places on the internet mention that Mozilla is considering Discord as a replacement for IRC. Many of you guys know I recently started an IRC channel for the DistroTube YouTube channel. You can find me at #DistroTube over on freenode on IRC. It's because I wanted to get away from proprietary products like Discord, and also because Discord, I don't like the feel of it. It's an Electron app. It's full of emojis and memes, and you can post pictures and multimedia, and I just want beautiful plain text. I want a chat client to just be a chat client, and that's why I love IRC. And if they're going to move to Discord, I think that's not my kind of crowd, and I'm the kind of person that's a Mozilla enthusiast, right? I'm a free and open source software enthusiast. I don't want to be on Discord. I don't think most of the people that are really enthusiastic about Mozilla and their products want to be on Discord. So Mozilla has not officially decided on the new platform for their text communication. So it's not official that it's going to be Discord. Mozilla is only saying that they have some requirements that they want the new chat client to meet. Those requirements include that it must be a product by another company or organization. Mozilla doesn't want to run it. It must be self-hosted or pay for a service. It needs to be accessible. It needs to be a product, not a protocol, where IRC is not a product. IRC is just a protocol, and there are dozens, maybe hundreds of IRC clients that use the IRC protocol. No, they want a product where Discord is just Discord. There's not, a dozen different Discord clients. There's just the one Discord. So that would make sense why it would be something like Discord. It must be a proven modern service. So again, they're saying that just plain text is old and crusty, and they want the emojis and the multimedia and the whiz bang. And it's horrible. I don't like. I love Mozilla as a company, and I love 99% of what they do, but occasionally they just do things that, in my opinion, boneheaded. And that was the fifth and final story on the docket tonight. This was Taking Into Account episode 40. I try to release a new episode of Taking Into Account sometime every Thursday, so look for Taking Into Account episode 41 sometime next Thursday. As always, I try to read a viewer question or comment at the end of these shows, and this week's viewer question or comment is actually one I've been getting for the last 3 weeks or so from dozens of you guys, so it's just going to be answering everybody. How is my new machine? Those of you that don't know, about 3 weeks ago I got a new computer, a new desktop for my main production machine. It has a 12-core, 24-thread Threadripper, the 1920X in it, and the Threadripper is fantastic. It's by far the best CPU I've ever had. The thing just is amazing. You guys that watched my Disco Dingo review, where I viewed 6 different flavors of 1904 in VMs at the same time. I had 6 VMs running at the same time, gave each 2 threads of that Threadripper, gave each VM 4 gigs of RAM, and did all this while recording in OBS on my main machine, of course, on the host machine, and the Threadripper it didn't even stutter. I don't even think it used 30-40% of the CPU doing all of that. So the Threadripper has been fantastic. The Radeon 7 graphics card, it works. I have no complaints about that. Just everything about the machine. I had one issue that I really didn't talk about on camera when I first got it. The mic jack in the back, for the headphones or for your speakers, there was a short, so anything you plugged into that in the back of the computer, it was just static. It didn't matter the device, what you plugged into it, it was always static. So it's some kind of short in it or something interfering with it. Oddly enough, I took the side of the case off and played around with some of the wiring and everything in the computer, just jiggled things and put it back together, and then plugged in some speakers into that jack, and it worked. So that was the only problem I had, and apparently it was very fixable. So all in all, love my new machine that I bought from Ava Direct. So before I go, I need to thank a few people. This show was made possible by Ansem, Carlos, Chris, Douglas, Dylan, Leo, Rob, Robert, and Tony. They're the producers of the show. They're my highest tiered patrons over on Patreon. Without these guys, taking into account episode 40 would not have been possible. The show is also brought to you by all those fine ladies and gentlemen. All those names you see on the screen, they're the supporters of the channel. They help support my work over on Patreon. Again, without each and every one of those guys, I would not be making this show. So, if you'd like to help support the channel, please consider doing so. You'll find me at DistroTube over on Patreon. Alright guys, peace.